And we're the King Sisters.
Yep.
And we are back with another episode of Power of the Gospels. It is
It's episode 12. I don't know what week it is.
Episode 12. Week 12. Episode 12.
Exactly.
All right. Episode 12. When we are starting.
Chapter 25.
Chapter 25. Let's
Go
and dive right in.
All right. The parable of the 10 virgins. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. For when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. But the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a cry, "Here is the bridegroom. Come out to meet him." Then all those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise answered, saying, "Since there will not be enough for us and for you, go rather to the dealers and buy for yourselves." And while they were going to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterward, the other virgins came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he answered, "Truly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour."
So again,
So just another illustration
of staying faithful,
staying ready,
yeah,
staying prepared,
staying ready,
staying prepared.
strong.
Like they had their spare oil, and they were ready to burn that oil to the late hours.
Yep, and then there were some who were foolish and didn't look ahead and were only caught up in what was happening right there in the moment, and then they weren't.
And then they wanted to, they wanted you to share.
But
it wasn't a time for sharing.
Well, because really...
Sharing is caring, but not then.
Well, because each person is only... Each person can focus on your heart, right? You can't do it for someone else. You can encourage them, but you can't really do it for them. And they wanted to benefit from someone else, I guess, their oil. And oil is
moving on.
Okay, moving forward.
Verse 14. For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, "Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more." His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, "Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more." His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." He also called who had received the 1 talent. He also who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, "Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours." But his master answered him, "You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth."
Okay, so that's super intense. And one thing that that I think also just to point out here, so the one that had the one talent didn't use it for the Lord, and on top of that didn't know the Lord. Like when
he didn't know him.
He didn't know him at all. He's saying, Master, I know you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you scattered no seed. So this is why I didn't even use it. I just buried it. Well, first of all, that's not how the Lord is. Mm-mm. And so the Lord's like, you're saying that I'm like this, which I'm not, but so you saying that I'm like this, and then you still didn't do anything with it? Like the whole thing was bad. No like good. His excuse was no good. And his actions were no good, and the little bit that he had now was going to be taken away because really it was just a bad situation. Yep. So just be faithful. The Lord really does give you something to do. You know, you ask him to help you, but like try to do it. Try to use the gifts he's given.
Be faithful. Be
what he gives
a good steward of the responsibilities that you have.
And he'll give you more as he promotes as he sees fit, but just be faithful with what he's given you. Try to use it to glorify the Lord, not lift yourself up. Don't and don't, like, it's important for us to know him and how he really is. Like that excuse was just silly. It wasn't accurate. The Lord's not like that anyway.
Right. Yeah. Okay, verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, Come you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, Truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me.
That's so, it's just living out the gospel. It's living it, not just saying it, not just preaching it, but living it, being kind, loving others, helping when we can, being sincere. And Jesus sees every one of those acts as if you are doing it for him. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Verse 41. Then he will say to those on his left, Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels.
So hell was made for the devil and his angels. Never mistake. He never wants one person to go there ever. No. It wasn't created for people. It was created for the devil and his followers, or his angels.
That's right.
So.
For I was hungry and you gave me no food. I was thirsty and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger and you did not welcome me. Naked and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison and you did not visit me. Then they also will answer, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, Truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteousness into eternal life.
Whoa. That's intense. It is intense. So, like, actions matter, I guess. Actions matter. How we treat people and treat others, it matters.
It's very important. Chapter 26. When Jesus had finished all these sayings, he said to his disciples, You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified. Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and plotted together in order to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they said, Not during the feast, lest there be an uproar among the people. Now when Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came up to him with an alabaster flask of very expensive ointment, and she poured it on his head as he reclined at table. And when the disciples saw it, they were indignant, saying, Why this waste? For this could have been sold for a large sum and given to the poor. But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble the woman? For she has done a beautiful thing to me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. In pouring this ointment on my body, she has done it to prepare me for burial. Truly I say to you, wherever this gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her."
So we just want to point out and really pay attention to that. One, because Jesus wants it remembered.
Yeah.
He wants it remembered. And two, that precious gal, that precious woman, she saw Jesus.
She recognized.
She recognized who he was, and even if she didn't understand everything that was getting ready to happen,
right? She wanted to honor him.
She did honor him. She revered him the best way she could, and he acknowledged that. He loved that, and he wants it talked about and remembered. So we're going to talk about it and remember what she did, and how that honored him, and how awesome that is.
Yeah, and I also think too that there can be a little lesson there too, like don't be quick to judge others' actions, because the disciples kind of were quick to kind of judge
what she
her and saw it as wasteful, but the Lord didn't see it.
No, the Lord was blessed by it and wants us all to remember what she did.
Yeah,
and her honoring him was a wonderful thing. And they were missing it.
They were missing it.
Yeah, and there were poor. I mean, the money that ointment or that perfume could have been sold for a lot of money and helped. And Jesus was like, yeah, you're missing it here.
Yeah.
She is recognizing who I am. She is honoring me. So yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, verse 14. Then one of the 12, whose name was Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I deliver him over to you?" And they paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he sought an opportunity to betray him.
That's horrifying.
For 30 pieces of silver.
It's astonishing. It's terrible.
Now, on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying, "Where will you have us prepare for you to eat the Passover?" He said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.' And the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover. When it was evening, he reclined at table with the 12. And as they were eating, he said, 'Truly I say to you, one of you will betray me.' And they were very sorrowful, and began to say to him one after another, 'Is it I, Lord?' He answered, 'He who has dipped his hand in the dish with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born.' Judas, who would betray him, answered, 'Is it I, Rabbi?' He said to him. And he said to him, 'You have said so.'"
It's just,
like he knows. Jesus knew.
Jesus knew.
Jesus
knew the whole time. It's just so horrible. It's just beyond words to
you know, it's really it's wild, really, if you think about like everything. Judas was one of the 12, so he walked with Jesus. He saw all the crazy, miraculous things that the Lord did, and the compassion. Like, first of all, how could he think that the Lord wouldn't know?
Right.
How could he have thought that
he was blinded by his greed?
Like, obviously the demonic.
The demonic and his own flesh, like the demonic preys upon the fleshly desires, right?
Yeah.
They prey on those weaknesses, they tempt that, and then he indulged in it.
Yeah.
So yes,
then he was
demonic,
like given over to it.
Yeah, he chose it, he indulged in it, and they worked with them, and together the plot was done. It's so wicked, it's so evil, and it was Jesus. It was
just terrible. Okay. Verse 26. Now as they were eating, Jesus took bread, and after blessing it, broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink again of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom."
Okay, so just for the benefit of someone who maybe has read this for the first time or whatever, that is what taking communion now is, right? That symbolism of drinking the wine. It is in our mind and in our faith. That is ingesting the gift of his shedding his blood for us. The forgiven. Yes. We are washed clean. Yes. By his, he was the perfect sacrifice. And that taking that communion, drinking that eating cup, the bread and drinking that cup. Yes. It is just a symbol of that truth. It is a reality. Yes. Of the blood of Jesus. Yes.
Let's see. I've lost my place.
Verse 30. Right.
Yes, got it. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter answered him, "Though they all fall away because of you, I will never fall away." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even if I must die with you, I will not deny you." And all the disciples said the same.
Poor Peter didn't know what was coming, but first of all, Jesus, they didn't quite comprehend what Jesus was saying. He's saying,
they weren't getting it.
They didn't get it. He's going to be struck down, and then the flock's going to scatter. But then he tells them again, "But after I'm raised up, I'm going to raise up.
Yeah,
then over. I'll go before you to Galilee." So they were missing it, how literal that was going to be.
Yeah.
And then Peter loved him so much, and intends to be faithful and strong. He intends to, but Jesus knew and told him that, okay, this is what's going to really happen. Yeah. He knew. He already knew.
Jesus knew.
Peter didn't.
Verse 36, Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And taking with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me." And going a little farther, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, "My Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again, for the 2nd time, he went away and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." And again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the 3rd time, saying the same words again. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Sleep and take your rest later on. See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand."
Okay, so the whole thing is just getting so heavy and intense. But so when Jesus is praying, asking the Father if there's any way we can do this. Yeah. Without me having to go this. Because
he knows what's coming.
He does know what's coming. And he is God Almighty, but he is walking it out as Son of Man. He's going to feel every bit of it.
That's right.
He's going to endure every one of the whippings and thrashings that's coming. He's going to shed his blood. He's going to die.
Yeah.
And even though he knows...
He is God, but he's in a human body.
He is, and he's going to experience it. He knows the pain. He knows the price that he's getting ready to pay. And he's basically just talking it out. "Father, if there's another way we can do this, nevertheless, your will," because as he's submitting to it so that it's all perfectly done, right? But still, he had to actually feel it and go through it. He was going to pay for everybody's sin, and he was perfect without sin. And it's just intense. And then asking the 3 closest to pray and watch, and they couldn't stay awake. They didn't understand the gravity. They didn't know the soldiers were nearly there. They didn't know about the betrayal. They didn't even know that Jesus was really going to die.
Well, and I think it's also kind of interesting. He says, when he says to Peter, so could you not watch with me 1 hour, watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation? I wonder if part of that, if Peter hadn't fallen asleep, if he would have been able to stay awake and pray, if he wouldn't have denied the Lord. I don't know. But maybe because he said so that you wouldn't fall into temptation, there was temptation to fear, and he gave into it. Yeah. Right? Maybe. Like, that's what's coming. Yeah. I don't know, just a thought. Mm-hmm. No idea. Verse 47. While he was still speaking, Judas came, one of the 12, and with him a great crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, the one I will kiss is the man. Seize him. And he came up to Jesus at once and said, greetings, Rabbi, and he kissed him. Jesus said to him, friend, do what you came to do. Then they came up and laid hands on Jesus and seized him. And behold, one of those who were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, put your sword back in its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then should the scriptures be fulfilled, that it must be so? At that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, have you come out as against a robber, with swords and clubs to capture me? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But all this has taken place that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples left him and fled.
Okay, so we find out in one of the other Gospels that it was Peter who had done that, right? And then in that particular account gives us the detail that Jesus also puts the ear, like fixes the ear of the soldier that's come to arrest him. It's another detail.
Or another gospel.
Yeah, but it is same occurrence here. And he's saying, don't you understand? I could stop this right now if I wanted to. I could.
Because he's God.
He's God Almighty. Father, send the legions, send the angels. And they could stop this immediately. But he's doing this to save us. It has to go this way to save us. That's why he's going to go through this. So he's just amazing. He knew everything. And then to have Judas betray him like that is just so horrifying. It's just terrifying. Terrible. Just horrible. Okay.
And it ended with the disciples
fleeing.
They fled.
He told them that they were going to. He knew what was going to happen. Wow. Okay.
Okay, verse 57. Then those who had seized Jesus led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had gathered. And Peter was following him at a distance, as far as the courtyard of the high priest, and going inside, he sat with the guards to see the end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were seeking false testimony against Jesus, that they might put him to death.
They're so wicked. They're seeking false testimony because there was nothing to really testify.
Well, because he hadn't committed a crime.
Of course not. He was sinless. Yeah. He was perfect. And so they were seeking willfully, on purpose, seeking false testimony. They wanted to destroy the Lord. Oh my gosh.
But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At last, 2 came forward and said, this man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to rebuild it in 3 days. And the high priest stood up and said, have you no answer to make? What is it that these men testify against you? But Jesus remained silent. And the high priest said to him, I adjure you by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God. Jesus said to him, you have said so. But I tell you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest tore his robes and said, he has uttered blasphemy. What further witnesses do we need? You have now heard his blasphemy. What is your judgment? They answered, he deserves death. Then he spit in his face and struck him. And some slapped him, saying, prophesy to us, you Christ. Who is it that struck you?
And wickedness is just horrifying. It's just terrifying. And Jesus could have stopped it at any moment, and he didn't. He wouldn't defend himself because he's walking this out to save us. This is how he's going to save us, and he's not going to stop this from happening. Although he could have. He did not.
Verse 69. Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came up to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before them all, saying, "I do not know what you mean." And when he went out to the entrance, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." And again he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you too are one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, "I do not know the man." And immediately the rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
Oh, it's so heartbreaking. Like, right? Oh my gosh, Peter,
that had to have been like
devastating.
Beyond the worst realization ever.
To have denied the Lord in a time like that.
And then knowing that the Lord
knew.
He knew before, and he knew after it was done.
He knew. But it's okay.
It's okay.
The Lord is so gracious, and we find out that
and it ain't over.
It ain't over. That's right. And he will recover. And so you know what? There could be times in our life that we've failed in faith at something. Like
Absolutely.
We've stumbled, or we've
been tempted, and maybe
we've denied the Lord. Like in a situation of peer pressure or something. Maybe there's a situation where you did something you shouldn't have because you were too whatever to stand up against it or to declare the Lord or whatever. Nothing could be, as far as I'm concerned, nothing could be worse than this one right here, right?
Yeah.
And he's forgiven, and he recovered. Not only did he recover, and we'll find out later, but he becomes the strength that Jesus tells him to strengthen his brothers and sisters.
Yep.
Like, so
and Peter has an amazing ministry.
Gets
to do see all kinds of amazing things.
That's right. So maybe whether we've stumbled or maybe we didn't hit the mark or we fell away for a while and came back to him. Right. Like there's maybe backslidden for a bit and then come back. He is so quick to forgive.
That's
he
right.
forgives all, and it's not over.
That's not
until
over.
We're in heaven. Like it's
That's
not
right.
over. So you just pick it up right now today,
right.
and you go forward.
That's
you,
right.
You serve the Lord today. If you haven't been doing things right, or you've been doing things really wrong, whatever, fix it today.
Okay.
It's all right.
Okay.
Fix
Turn
it
around now.
That's right. Repent and carry on starting now. He forgives it. It's gone, and it's not too late.
And none of us are perfect.
Nobody.
None of us. Jesus is the only one that was perfect. That's why he could be the sacrifice.
That's right. That's right. He is the perfect one. And then his strength empowers us. We are made righteous through him. It's his righteousness through us. Yeah. So, all right. Be encouraged. And hope this blessed you. Yeah. It's a hard section.
It's a hard section, but we gotta hang in there.
That's
because
right. It's not over.
It's not over.
All right. We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.